So it's been like almost 20 years of making art. Hello guys, I am back with another video, and today I want to talk to you guys about creative blocks and how you can overcome situations like that in your life. How sometimes we think of them as something that is going to take a lot of effort to get through, but in reality, those things are not even that hard to understand. In previous videos, I have talked about how you need to surround yourself with art if you always want to be motivated and you always want to have a sort of creative spark, right? I've seen that a lot of people sort of struggle with this idea of a blocking in their creative journey, this idea of a sort of missing spark, as if their art is just not lighting them up anymore, and there's some sort of a wall up between them and what they want to create, right? I'm a very creative person. I cannot sort of function without indulging in something that sort of takes me away from reality almost. I've been painting since I was very young. I think let's start with the story of how I started painting, right? As you guys know, or if you're new here, I just like to talk. Whatever the title of this video is, that is what this video is going to have. But I like to talk freely. I know that a lot of the times, as YouTubers or as people who create videos, there's a sort of pressure to talk fast and get all the facts out and keep people watching. I think if somebody wants to watch, they'll watch, and I like to speak like a normal person. Nothing against people who like to keep their videos concise, because even I sometimes enjoy watching those videos, but for myself, I have never been the kind of person to cram all my thoughts in a box, right? And then just show you the box and there you go. I've always been the kind of person who likes to take their time to talk, take their time to sort of engage with people. I think it's so much better if I just let myself be in a flow of talking and then speak to you guys. I think it will be much more useful then. Whatever I tell you guys will be much more useful, right? So let's start with the story. As I talk to you guys about how I started painting, I think I will also add in some pictures of the paintings that I've done, just to give you an idea of what I'm talking about and also a visual idea of what I do, right? Basically, when I was very little, I am not sure of the exact age, but I think I was about 5 or 6 when I think I started to get into creative things very early on. Um, but my last memory of me painting, my first memory of me painting is um, when I was 5 or 6 years old, right? And my mom used to encourage creative things a lot, and she would actually be very happy if I would do something creative. And I seemed to have a quick interest in crafts and arts and things like that when I was very, very little. Because even at school, I used to try to participate in more of those kinds of things, right? So my mom must have given me like paints and a sheet of paper, and I just went on and on and on, and then that become like a thing for me, that this is what I like to do. And even my mom was amazed because she was like, oh, this kid wants to paint. Right? And then, and even before that, when I was, I think, 4 and I started going to school, um I used to love doing those exercises where they give you like an apple and you have to fill the color into it. I love those things. I was a very quiet, shy kid, but I loved that. And teachers were so happy because of that, because no other kids were sort of interested in it, right? But yeah, time went on, and I started to get more and more into this creative idea of painting, creating things with my hands, uh, having like a focus on the things that are different colors and different textures and things like that. And the reason I'm telling this story is because I want you to remember what your story with art is. How did you start? What happened that made you think that, oh, this is something that I want to do? Like, if you write, I have another story about that because I also write, but that started like way after I started painting. I actually, so yeah, I mean, the painting thing went on as you think it would have, and I got really interested in it. I started participating in competitions and stuff like that, and my confidence sort of built around that area, that I knew that I was good at this thing because I'd been practicing like my entire life. So time goes on, I continue to paint. Now I'm 24 years old and I still paint. So it's been like almost 20 years of making art. And it's been a lot of fun. And I think the reason that I never quit is what I want to share with you in this video, because I think if there's anyone out there who used to love doing something and has now quit because they feel the lack of that spark, that is the person that this video is for. And everyone else who thinks they want to be more motivated and more into their art, right? So, writing. I always was amazed by poetry, and we used to be taught in school about these famous poets like Sylvia Plath and Robert Frost, and I hope they were teaching us Edgar Allan Poe because I love him. But yeah, we had quite a few like really good poets that we were taught from in school, and I was always so happy studying that. I was not really interested in any other subject as much as literature. So that sparked something in me. I used to love reading stories, I used to love reading poems, and it was always this thing that made me really happy. It sparked something in my mind that told me that, there is, I didn't realize it at the time, but it was a feeling of there is something more than the plainness of life, right? There is something more to us as humans. And that idea, I think, never left me. And one day I had always thought that I would never be the person who would write, right? And that was crazy because I was so interested in literature, and I started reading novels very, very early on. It was a children's novel, but it was still like a novel, and nobody used to do that. Nobody was interested in books, so maybe I was the geek. But I got interested in reading books so early on, right? So anybody could have sort of matched that together, that at some point I might try to write. But I was not the one who did it, okay? I was oblivious. I thought that this is just something that I enjoy doing, but other people do it and I don't, right? And then switch to, I turned 16 and I saw some loss, right? And it sort of pushed me back into looking for that thing that made sense to me a long time ago, that there is something to humans that makes more sense of us being here, that is sort of the magic in life. And I don't even remember what I thought. I just sat in my sister's room and I thought, I'll write a poem, right? And it was not even a clear thought. I just had a piece of paper with me and a pen because I used to. Crazy thing is, I already used to write a lot in terms of journaling. Like, I used to write my feelings and stuff because I was dealing with things, I sort of wanted like an outlet for whatever I was feeling, and so I already used to write, and I had this like paper and pen with me, and I start to make up these lines in my mind, and I think within like 10 minutes I had written a poem. I don't know where the hell that poem is. It was called something like Cosmic Child or something like that, which is insane to think about now. That 16-year-old me looking for something to make sense of life writes Cosmic Child because she thinks that, and she didn't even think. Like me back then, I wasn't even thinking. I just wrote it and handed it to my sister, and she was like, okay, who wrote this? This is nice. And I was like, I wrote it. And that sort of started this journey of me writing. And then I never stopped. And if you've not seen it before, in 2023, I wrote my first book, which is a poetry book. It's called As Simple and As Complicated as Love. It is available on Amazon to purchase and also on Kindle as an audiobook. And look at the way things have sort of come around. This is my first poetry book, and this is a painting that I made just some time before I published this book. And on the back it says, love is a subject of beauty and blight, and it holds everything together. The book may be considered an ode and an elegy to love, What it may not be considered is an understanding of it. So yeah, I wrote a book, which is insane to me sometimes. I hold it and it feels like this is not real, right? And so art sort of surrounded me my entire life, and now as a career I'm a stylist and a creative director, right? So it all ties in together to where it started, with the painting, with the textures, with the colors, with the poetry, with the art and everything. And the way I have always managed to stick to what I love doing and not let it sort of pass by with time, because there have come times where I've not done something for a little while, and then I felt like I cannot let this go, right? And I think a lot of us feel that frustration sometimes, that we love to paint but we don't have that right idea, or we feel stuck, or we feel like we're just not able to get to it, and months pass and then we panic because we feel like we will sort of have this beautiful thing slip out of our hands. And honestly, it doesn't slip out of your hands ever, because you are the artist. The painting is not the artist, the poem is not the artist, you are the artist, right? So it doesn't exactly slip out of you ever. And that is what I want to tell you in this video. The way you can sort of navigate back to the things that you loved to do, the things that made you happy, the things that clearly brought some sort of a satisfaction, some sort of a contentment to your life, is by tracing back on the steps that you took when you first started it. And I don't mean actually tracing back those steps, even though I think if you used to live somewhere else, or if you used to hang out somewhere else when you were really creative, going back to those places can sort of spark new ideas in you and can put you in that same feel again. But thinking back on how you started it and why you started it will really amplify the need in you that wants to create, right? I think a lot of people are creative and they are not able to get back to the things that they want to create or they want to do, because we as humans think too much. Sometimes it's that perfectionistic disorder that we have, that if I make it, it has to be the best thing ever, right? And I had that, trust me, I had that. And it wasn't just that, it was worse. I wanted to do it perfect to a T, perfect in my opinion, and I wanted to do it as soon as possible. So I wanted to finish like that. And when you paint with acrylics, if you're an artist, if you're a painter, you would understand. If you paint with acrylics, it's still possible to finish the painting in one go, right? When you're painting with oils, you have to give them time to dry. You have to let them be so that you can add on those layers later on, right? And I did not have the patience. I wanted to do it in one go. Sometimes back in school when I used to paint, I would sit in the same place for like 10 hours and paint and forget to eat and forget to drink and forget to sleep. And it was fun, trust me, it was a beautiful time, I felt like I was always creating, and that made things flow out of me. But I needed to have the patience to let it go for a day, come back to see what things I can change, what I can improve, what I can do better, right? And that was something I was not doing. Now, this painting that I have on the cover of my book, I'll also add a picture of it just so that you can see clearly. This painting took like at least 2 weeks to complete, and this is also an acrylic painting, but then the shadows, the highlights, the textures, the composition that I had decided to create, which was like a double exposure sort of a thing. I had done this a long time ago once, where I painted both of my hands in double exposure on top of each other. And if I find that painting, I'll put it in there, and then you can see sort of, I mean, I love both of these paintings, but you can see the sort of difference it makes when you take your time to do things. And sometimes that is what we need to realize, that the spark has to be there, but you also need to let yourself take time to create it. If you do it every day, a little bit more and a little bit more and a little bit more consistently, you will sort of be in a flow of things. But if you put all your energy into that thing at once, the next day you'll be tired as hell and you will not want to go back to that thing for at least a little while. And that is why I think that is the best way to go about for anything at all. Even if you work out, if you write, if you do any sort of creative anything, it's always best to take your time with things and let them go slowly and let them unfold and let yourself understand what you need while you create this thing, right? So, to sort of like sum up the topics as we go, the first thing that you can do is trace back on your steps to where you started from. Look at the meaning behind things. What was your meaning? What was your intent behind starting that creative project in the first place? Second thing is giving yourself the time and the space to create in a flow, rather than a flow that looks like this, rather than a flow that goes like that and then that, and sort of has much more downtime than if you would have just consistently gone about those things and taken days, taken weeks to sort of indulge in those things, understand them, instead of being in a race to finish, right? The third thing that I think everybody should do, it's not even necessary if you're an artist or if you're in a freaking bank job. I think everybody should do this just to have a sanity and a meaning to your lives, and a sort of contentment and a sort of satisfaction that helps you realize that you're not just going through life aimlessly doing the same thing over and over again. You are somebody who breathes, lives, thinks, experiences, and somebody who understands themselves. That is where your own identity can come through clearly to you, where you can understand yourself in a way that you will be able to create better, right? And that is writing. I don't even know how many journals I've filled through the course of my life, but I always have at least two. One for personal and spiritual journaling, and one for creative journaling and writing. This is the personal journal, and the other one is the sort of creative journal where I sort of write whatever I feel like writing. And I think this is of utmost importance to me. If I go anywhere without a journal, I feel a sort of lack. I feel like I don't have anything to capture my thoughts in, and it actually has happened to me that some great idea occurred to me that I could have written about or could have made into something, and because I didn't have my journal, I forgot what it was. And later on, I could just feel like an empty hole in my thoughts where that idea was. So if you don't want to experience that kind of frustration, I would highly suggest that you go get yourself a journal, right? And you could write anything into that journal, anything at all. Don't worry if you've never written before. Don't worry sounding stupid or anything like that. It doesn't matter. It's your journal. Nobody's gonna read it. Write whatever comes to mind. I saw this video a long time ago where this guy explained that, there's a way that you can never miss out on any ideas again. And I think I read of the same idea in this book. It tells you tricks and tips and things that you can do to sort of bring out the artist in yourself. And what it says is, carry a little journal with you, and whatever you think is interesting, it can be a phrase, it can be a word, it can be some colors together, it can be an instance that you saw or heard somebody talk about, it can be anything. Carry a little journal with you, like a pocket diary or something like that, and whatever you find interesting, note it down in that journal. And whenever you think you're out of ideas, open that journal and go through it once, and you will surely find something that you would like to create in that moment from, right? And I think that's pretty simple to do, and it's actually a great idea. I've done that myself many times, and even though I usually, like, if I get an idea for a poem, I just stop and write the poem, because I think the motivation and the way I am thinking of that thing might change even a few hours from now. So I want to be in this exact feeling of things. And I think that's also because I sort of write from feeling rather than an intellectual idea. There can be a word or a phrase that calls out to me, and then I sort of have this state that I am in, these things that I'm feeling at the time that make perfect sense with what I want to write. And if I write it at that moment, it just works for me. And if you're like me, I think you should also carry a diary and do that. But if it works for you to create later, you should definitely do it. And even I do that sometimes when it's just an idea and I don't know exactly what I want to do with it yet. I put it even sometimes on my notes on my phone if I don't have something to write on, because the trouble with me is I don't like to write on my phone. I think the task or the act of writing should be done with a pen and a paper, if you know what I mean. It just feels right to do it that way, to me at least. And so initially whatever I write it in my diaries, and later on I would put it in a document or something like that on Google, and that helps me also edit it in a way, because when I'm reading it and typing it down over there, I sort of get a chance to rethink on words or phrases or grammatical errors or anything like that, and I correct those things and sort of edit things out as I go. So yeah, this video is basically an accumulation of habits that you can sort of have for yourself, pick what you want, leave what you don't want, and bring back your creative spark. If you want books and movie recommendations to bring back your creative spark, you can let me know, and maybe that's the next video that I'll make. And yeah, I hope you enjoyed this video. Sorry about my throat. I sound sort of hoarse because I don't know, I just woke up sounding like that. And maybe because I've had too much coffee. But I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you can take something that works for you. And if you do, please let me know what helped you and how it helped you. I would love to know actually. And I'll see you in the next one.